friends. My name is Vipul, and I have recently been giving the Snowflake Data Warehouse interview. So I wanted to share with you some of the questions which I am recently facing, so that it can help you to clear your interviews or to give you an idea of what type of questions are being asked in the interviews of Snowflake Data Warehouse. So one thing we have to keep in mind that whenever we sit for a Snowflake Data Warehouse interview, at that time, we should always be aware about the SQL basic, because anyhow, as a Snowflake developer, or as a, even if you are Snowflake lead, if you are applying for multiple job titles for Snowflake Data Warehouse, you should still be aware of how you can run your your SQL queries against your Snowflake Data Warehouse. So let's get started, and I'll be sharing the questions. So let's start one by one. So I'm listing few questions. So I will give a very brief answers to these questions. So if you want to deep dive, then please go through the Snowflake documentation, and you can also post your comment if you think that if there is some better way to do these questions, okay, which we are going to discuss. So the main objective of this video is to have a good discussion, so that who all are preparing for the interviews, they can discuss among their friends, they can discuss their question with us, and then we can collaborate, and we can get a good idea of how we can crack the interviews. Okay. So first thing first, so the very first question which we are going to talk about is what are the different layers in the Snowflake data warehouse? So this is a very basic question and very obvious question which we expect in the Snowflake data warehouse, and we should know that how it looks like. So this is a very high level architecture of Snowflake data warehouse, and you should be able to answer the question like the what is the cloud services, what it does. So these terms which are mentioned over here, which says that cloud services is a brain of a system. It helps in managing infrastructure, access control, security, optimization, and the metadata. Then comes the next layer, which is query processing layer, which consists of virtual warehouses, and it is also called as muscles of the system. And it perform massive parallel processing, and you should be able to give more details that we have the virtual warehouses in different sizes, and we can also have multiple virtual warehouses in one Snowflake data warehouse account. And we can also have, like, we can also kind of increase the instances, or we can also increase the size of the virtual warehouse based on the scenario. And finally, we have the storage, which is going to be common for all the users. So here we have hybrid columnar storage, and then with the data which is saved in blobs. So we should be able to give a good introduction and a good description about each and everything. And then what happens that just we have to be mindful of what terms we are using while describing the Snowflake architecture, that sometimes you say a term which you're not that confident about, and your interviewer might catch you up in that word. And so be mindful of what terms you are using. So please use those terms which you are already aware of, and try to avoid, some fancy words which you may not be able to describe in detail later on. And then the next question is, how would you save the query output of the show table in the table? In the Snowflake data warehouse, what we have, so I'll just mention it over here. So in Snowflake data warehouse, we have some command called as show tables, right? So show tables is used to define the output of the what all tables are there in a specific database. We cannot use something like we cannot do something like this, create table, let's say ABC as select star. So we cannot as select from something like that. Okay. So we cannot do like this. Okay. So this CTAS doesn't work in this way. So this is CTAS, which says create table name as select. So C stands for create, T for table, A for as, and S for select. So we cannot do it like this. So that is why what we have to do. So first of all, we have to run this command show table, and then we have to use. So first of all, as we all know, that all the queries within the Snowflake data warehouse has its own unique query identifier, right? So we just want to get the query ID of the last successful query which we just ran. And then what we want to do is that we want to capture that. So we can say there is a function. So we can have the last query ID. So this function is going to capture the last query ID. So in this case, it will be show tables. And then on top of that, what we want is that we want to scan the result. We just got the ID, and now we want to see what was the output of this identifier or this query. So we have to use something called as result underscore scan. So result scan, what it will do, it will give you the output of this specific query which have just captured. But because this result scan is not in tabular format, so finally what we have to do, we have to use a table function. So we have to do is that we have to convert this ID into a table. So now what we have is that we have this output of the previous query of show tables in a tabular format. Now we can use the ctas command. Now we can say that create table, let's say ABC as select star from, and now we can, we can do it very easily, right? So you have to take care of the parentheses we have, and then this is how we can capture the result of multiple queries, which we cannot use using CTS. Queries like describe, so we have DSC table, table name. If you have DSC warehouse, if you have DSC, DSC, there are any set of queries for which the result is not stored very easily, then we can use this kind of thing to capture the query ID and then scan in the result and finally put it into a table so that we can do that, right? Okay. So next question, what we have is how to process an object in the JSON file. So the JSON files are, they are very important. So we should know how we can capture that. So let's say if I have a JSON file, so JSON file looks something like this. Okay, so I'll expand this. So this is how so this is how your JSON file looks like. And then within that, you could have any element. You could have an ID. Let's say the ID is 123. And then within that, we have, let's say, we have previous employer. So previous employer could be in an array. So it could be like previous employer was A, and then there were two previous employers, right? A and B, right? And we can also have something called as object properties. So these are very crucial. We should know how we can kind of access them, right? And then over here, we are assuming that this JSON file has been imported into a table, right? So a table, let's say we have imported this file. This is, let's say, abc.json. And what we have done is that we have imported this file into, let's say, demo underscore variant, right? So first of all, we have to import this file into a table which has only one column. So the table name is demo variant. And let's say the column name over here is um, variant underscore demo, right? I mean, we can go with any name, right? This is the column name, and the data type of this column should be variant, right? So we have this data over here. So this data is now copied over from this file into this column, right? Now what we want is that we want to access these elements. So we should know how we can do that. So if I want to access the ID, so what I will say is that I will say the column name, which is var underscore demo. And then within that, so I'll use the quotes, this one, the colon. And then after colon, I have to tell which column I want to access, right? So this is how I can access the ID column. But if the element is an array, then I will have to say within the where demo, I want to access the previous employee, prev emp. And then if I say prev emp of 0, then I will be able to access the value A. But if I say prev emp of 1, I will be able to access the element B of this array, right? We can also use something called as what you can say, the hierarchy flattening. In that case, what I want to do is that I want to say that I want to select star from. So I want to select from, first of all, from this where demo, where. So what I will say now that select star from this table, right? Select star from variant. Okay, so the table name is demo variant, right? Demo variant. And then what I will do is that and one more thing. So I will say comma. Apart from that, I also want to create something called as hierarchy flattening, right? So what we will say, lateral flatten. So lateral flatten, what it will do, it will flatten your your object or your arrays, right? So now what I have to tell hierarchy flatten, and then what I have to do is that what is the input which I want to give, right? So the input to this function, to this lateral flatten function is going to be prevamp, right? Prev underscore m. And now I have got the hierarchy flattening function, but I have not yet taken the column from here, right? I have just given the input to this flatten function. Now what I want, okay. So now what I want, instead of star, I want to access the ID. So if I want to access the ID, so it's simple, right? So I say var underscore demo, and then from there I want to access the ID. Whereas for accessing the prevamp, because it is being lateral flattened. So instead of that, what I will say is that I want to have the value. What in a lateral flatten will do, it will create a table with one column whose name is going to be value. So if I say value and then this column, and then if I say prevamp, okay, prevamp, oh no, yeah, prevamp. In this case, I will be able to fetch all the values from here, right? Because all the values within this array have been flattened into the this column. Okay. So this is how we should be able to, and we should be comfortable about this. And this is how we have multiple options to also use the flatten function. But this is what I find very convenient and very easy to use, right? Okay. And next question, how to, okay, this we have done, how we can process this. And now the next question is explain the SCDs. So we should be comfortable with SCDs, which is soliciting dimensions. Interviewers mostly asked about the SCD type 1, SCD type 2. I have rarely seen some interviewer going beyond SCD type 2. So we should be comfortable about what all are the basic concepts of SCDs and how we can implement the SCDs, right? And then finally, we should know some optimization techniques in Snowflake Data Warehouse. Some of the very important optimization techniques which we have in Snowflake Data Warehouse, we should be aware of something called as clustering. So we should be able to explain what is clustering and how it actually is useful to optimize our data, right? We should be aware of something called as scaling factor. We have this scaling factor in the virtual warehouses. So we also have something called as scaling factor we should be aware of. Apart from that, we should know that what type of queries are good for that. Okay. So, and one more thing, which I really want to highlight over here, is that this is the observation which we have. This Snowflake data warehouse is not good with very complex queries, right? Okay. Very complex queries. Why it is? Because very complex queries create a very complex plan chart. It creates a very complex query execution plan, right? It creates because it creates a very complex execution plan, right? So if your query is very complex, if then it is going to create a very complex execution plan. So if that is the case, then you are going to get an error like out of memory execution memory. Okay, you can say that out of execution memory execution. Okay, so now if you have something like this, then you should consider breaking down your queries into subqueries, so breaking into multiple queries, so that this kind of specific a memory which is used to create the execution plan does not get out of memory. Similarly, there could be some scenarios where you are joining multiple tables. Let's say you have a CTE, and in that CTE, you are going to join multiple views. Let's say you are joining 10 views, right? 10 views, you are joining 10 tables. And although the query is very simple, so you are not going to get this error. The query plan is very simple. You are joining, but now you are joining a lot of objects in your Snowflake data warehouse query. So now what Snowflake data warehouse will do, it will throw some another type of error. It will be out of memory execution, not, sorry. Okay, the above one. So it is going to again going out of memory. This time the out of memory it is going to go is because it was not able to accommodate this much data in one query, right? So these kind of issues will also occur. So in this case, you should also consider if there are a lot of views and tables in your query, which are very huge, then you should consider breaking that into multiple queries, right? So these are kind of the optimization techniques in Snowflake Data Warehouse. These are the ones which we have discussed. Okay. Finally, we should be aware of the streams and tasks. We should know which scenario is good with streams and why we in the first place use streams and tasks. So in the at the very high level overview, we can say that streams is something which is used to track the changes on an object, can be a view, can be a table. So if I create a stream on a table, then whatever changes happen on a table, they will be captured in the stream. And tasks are used to automate something. So let's say if you want to execute any query on a particular schedule, then we create tasks out of that, right? So now next one. So because we are also asked about the SQL questions, So this was a very basic SQL question which was asked. So it is an employee table, and we have columns like first name, last name, email, phone number, hire date, job ID, and salary. And then we have another column which is job grade. So over here we have the job grade level, and then the range in which that level falls. So if the salary is between 1000 and 2999, the grade level is A. Between 3000 and 5999, the grade is B, and so on. Okay, so you get the idea. So now what I want is that I want to fetch the grade level into this table, right? So based on the salary. As you can see here, I cannot have the direct inner join, left outer join. So these things are out of the window. So now this is what the query look like. So now here what I will say, so you can forget this select statement for now. So this is the join table. So what I have to do is that I will have to inner join the employees table with the job grades table, right? So I will join these two tables, but now instead of the giving the join condition straight off, I will have to say the on clause where e dot salary, where this salary is between these two values, between the lower and the higher, and then I will fetch the grade level. Okay, so usually what scenarios we usually have is that when we are straight off joining the salary some column on the join, and then we are fetching another column. But this is another case where we are joining one column, and then we are checking whether that specific value of that column is between some range of values. So if e dot salary, whichever is coming from here, is between this range, then I will get this grade. Okay. So this was a bit different. It was not challenging, but it was a very different thing which we usually do in our data analysis. Okay. So now this we have already seen how to process a file with the variant column. And then similarly, we should be able to answer this question that how to implement the type 1 and type 2 SCDs in Snowflake Data Warehouse. So type 1, so this is back to what we discussed, the different SCDs. So type 1 SCD, we can directly have from streams, we can have the stream, and then from stream, we can import the data, dump the data into a table, and then we can have type 1. For type 2, we can use the upsert statement in which we can say that, okay, upsert, you can check the upsert statement. That is very, very important query as well. So you should be aware of how to use that. And then using upsert statement, we can have the type 2 implementation, right? And then my interviewer asked me about the data warehouse concepts. So we have the junk dimension, we have the role dimension. We should be aware of the data warehousing concepts as well. So they could ask you what is a junk dimension, what is a role dimension, and these are also very important. Okay. And now next one. This is a very interesting question which was asked by one of my interviewer. So this is how it looks like. Okay, I'll show you in MySQL. It's better. Oh, MySQL. Okay, so before that, I just want to give you a overview of what we are trying to do. Okay, so now first of all, this is the query for which I have to answer, right? So you can also take your time. You can pause the video and you can tell me how much what is going to be the output. First of all, let me tell you what this scenario is. So there is a table T2, and then right now, if I select this query, you can see the output of this T2 table. Okay. So over here, you can see that the T2 table is having only one column, even if it has multiple column, but I am interested in only one column, okay, which has value like 1, 0, null, and 5. So this table in all, if we talk about column B, it is having 4 columns. It is having one column with the 4 values. Now, if I do one more select on top of it, if I say select star from this T2, where B in this set of values. So this was the question which was asked from me. So this query gives the output of 4 records. If I do the count star, so I get 4 values. And then what is going to be the output of this query? Okay, so you can pause the video here, you can answer it, and you can guess the answer. And now I'm going to run this query. And if I do one more select on top of it, then you can see that the null is getting removed. Okay. So if I do a select star from this table where B in, so it's this now in this case, I'm going to get only 3 records. The null is going to get eliminated. Okay. So this was a nice question which was asked by the interviewer, and it is very, very something. So for some people, it could be something you didn't expect. So this is something which you need to keep in mind. Okay. Okay. Next question. This is a very generic question. If you are sitting for interviews for a long time, then you should be aware of how you can find the nth highest sale, or an employee having the nth highest salary, nth highest marks. And then what we want to do is that a general formula. So if I again go back to my SQL, where is that? So let's say if I have another table, so if I say select star from employee, okay, let's see what all type of columns are there. So over here, I have the hourly pay. Okay, so now I am interested in hourly pay. Or I can also have the employee ID, and the hourly pay. Okay. So now if I want to have so first of all, if I want to have, let's say, the second highest salary. So first of all, this column should be, this hourly pay should be in a specific order, right? So if I say order by, the order by should be in the descending order. You want the highest salary on the top, and then the less and less. Okay, so where is that? Okay, oops. Okay, what is wrong with that? Select employee ID, hourly pay from employee. So let me first of all select start from here. Maybe okay, let me check what is wrong. What is it saying? Select or not valid. Okay. So here we have this one. And then what we are saying is that I want to order it by. So I want to order it by hourly pay. Okay. And then what I will say is that I want the employee ID, and then I want the hourly pay. Okay. Okay. And now, because the output is in descending order, so I can see the highest salary on the top, and then the second highest, then the second highest, the third highest, and so on. Okay. So now if you want to have the second highest salary, what we have to do, once everything has been ordered, so what I will say is that I want only one output. Okay. So limit one will say that I will get only one result. And then what I have to do is that I have to do something, this one. Okay. Oh, I have not added it. Okay. Not a problem. Okay. And then what I'm saying is that I want a limit one. And yeah. So now once we have said that the limit should be one, meaning that I want only one output. And then what I have to say is that I want to offset by one. So offset, what it will do, it will skip the first record, and then it will pick the next record, right? So if I say limit 2, then it will take these records, and then the offset is 1, meaning that it will skip the first record and it will take the next 2 records, right? So now what we can do, what we have is the top second highest salary. So if I want the next, if I want to see the next highest salary, so I will offset by 2, right? And then I will say that I want to see the next highest salary. Okay, so here we have, okay, so we can offset by 3 because we had 2 records of 102, so that is why it is coming again. And now this is the third highest salary, right? So this is the generic formula which we can create. We can create a function which takes the value of which nth value you want. So in this case, we are having the third highest. So the offset value is the nth value. And then you will have to limit by 1 record. If you want to see 1 record, then you will say limit 1. And then you can input the value from the function or the procedure into this offset, and then you can get the value generically. Okay. So in this case, the this nth value is going to be, so if I say that nth value is 3, then my offset is going to be 2. So I want to skip the 2 values. So offset is 2, and then limit is 1, that I want only one output. So this is offset 2 and limit 1. Okay. Okay, this is also very interesting question which came. So now what it is saying is that I have the orders table. So now what I want is that I want to see a customer who is very loyal to my, or who is very, very loyal to my organization, who is coming to my market, to my shop again and again. So let's read the statement. So an active customer, it's simply someone who has bought company's product once before and has returned to make another product within 10 days, right? So now we have the ordered state, and we have to check which employee or which customer has returned within the 10 days If a customer has returned within the last 10 days, it means that that is an active customer. From the following table, write an SQL query to identify the active customer, right? So to find the active customer, we have to write a query, which is going to be something like that. Okay. Okay. Instead of this, I will just jump into over here. So I'll show you in the MySQL. So here, what we are doing is that we are doing a self join on the same table, right? So over here, what I want to have is that I want to have the customers identified. So first of all, I will do an inner join between the same orders table copies while do a self join. So I'll say I want to select star from the orders. I will create alias, let's say O1 and inner join between orders O2. Now the result which I want is that the customer ID should match. So I should the inner join should be on the customer ID because I want to see the same customer ID who has returned. So the customer ID should match and the order ID should not match because I do not want to join this customer on the same order ID. I do not want to see the same order ID, but I want to see if that customer has returned. If the customer has returned again, then the order ID is going to be different. So what I will say, I want to inner join between the two copies of the same table. And then I will say the customer ID should match. The order ID should not match. And finally, the last filter, last joining condition, which I want is that order date should be between the 10 days, right? So this is how the complete query look like. So you can ignore this. You can select anything from this table and then where. So what I'm doing is that you can also have a join condition. So right now I have a join condition. And then what I'm saying is that where the customer ID should match, and so and is very important, you should not use or, and the order ID should not match. Okay, so that is why we have not equal to, but, and the final condition is that the order date of these two joined tables, so b dot order date minus a dot order date should be between 0 and 10. Okay, so this is very important question. So this was also a very interesting and very challenging question which was asked very recently, and you should now be able to solve similar question as well. Okay. Okay. And finally, you should be asked about question like, let us just describe the scenario of how an end-to-end pipeline works in your projects, right? So over here, what I want to share is the scenario which is in my organization or the client for which we are working on. So we have multiple components. So if you are able to understand the full concepts, then it is also fine. But still, if you get the good part of that, if you understand 50% of that, then you can understand, then you can explain that 50% which you have understood, right? But this question is going to be multiple times because this is how most of the interviews start. They will ask you what you have done, so that based on that, they can cherry pick that specific question on which you will be drilled down. Okay. So over here, what we have is that the customer which we have is having the on-premise data or a legacy system as an Oracle, right? And over here, they have written some extract script which extract the data from the table. So it is like you can think of on a daily basis. It is having select star from a specific table, and it is having a where clause where saying that I want to extract the data for a specific system date, right? And then they have an AWS account. They are using two services from AWS. They are using MWAA, which is managed Apache Airflow workflow. Okay, so here you can write your Apache Airflow jobs or Apache Airflow DAGs, right? And then they are using the Amazon S3 buckets, of course, very important, to create the data lake where they will be having the extracted files. Okay. And then they are using dbt to transform the data once it in Snowflake data warehouse. And this is our Snowflake data warehouse account where we have a database, we have a schema, and then we have a table, right? And all these things sit inside a virtual private cloud. Okay, so there is a VPC connection between the AWS and the Snowflake data warehouse, right? So let's see what happens. So MWAA is a managed Apache Airflow instance. So here we can create multiple Apache Airflow jobs. And then these Apache Airflow jobs are nothing, but these are DAGs which are running in Python. So whatever Python scripts which are required by MWAA, they are placed in this S3 folder, right? So all the Python scripts which are required to be executed as a part of this MWAA, they are all written inside of it using the Python, and they are all in the S3 buckets, right? So we should be having a connection between MWAA and S3 so that MWAA can access and can read these Python files from here. So the first step is, so there are multiple steps in the Apache Airflow job. So this tag starts with the trigger of this execution job, extract job, right? So the first step of this tag, this particular tag, so there are multiple tags. So what first tag will do, it will trigger these extract jobs in the Oracle, and then this will run the extract scripts, and these will export the data into their local folder, right? Into their on-premise system. Now the next job, the next tag, which we have in Airflow, which we have written using Python, that will move the files from this area, from their on-premise system, into the layer 1 of the S3 bucket. So here you can think of like 3 different S3 buckets, or 3 different folders within one S3 bucket, right? So first of all, what first job will do, that will run the extract script that will extract the files into their on-premise. The second job will move these files from here to the layer 1, right? And now the next job, what it will do, it will move the files from layer 1 to layer 2, because we are having multiple layers and we do not want to have, we do not want to have these files being sitting here for a long time. So we want them to be moved. Sometimes we want them to be compressed or uncompressed, or we just want to change the format. Let's say we have a CSV, and over here we want a JSON file. So these kind of transformation we can also do over here. As a third step, as a part of the third DAG, which is in Airflow, what it will do, it will trigger the Snowflake data warehouse stored procedures, and those stored procedures contain copy into command. Okay, so now the data which is in layer 3, it is then copied into the Snowflake data warehouse tables, because these DAGs are now calling the stored procedure within the Snowflake data warehouse, and they contain copy into. So now finally, the data which is coming from Oracle is now copied into the Snowflake data warehouse. Now, once the data is in the Snowflake data warehouse table, we use DBT to perform the transformation on top of that, right? So as we know, DBT does something called as the ELT. Okay, so it is, first of all, we extract, ELT. So first of all, we extract, we load, and then we perform the transformation on top of that. Okay, so this is one scenario which is there in our one of the business for which we are doing this. But if this looks very complex for you, then you can skip the DBT part, and you can skip the MWA part, and then you can just simply say that we have multiple flows. We have multiple Python scripts which run the extract, which plays the file, which move the file, and finally they are consumed, and that's it. Okay, so based on your experience and based on your understanding, you can, you can also increase the scope of this. You can say that we have multiple accounts of Snowflake data warehouse and so on. It is all up to your understanding. Okay. Now the next thing, which is very, very important, is how you are going to create multiple roles, multiple users, and then how you are going to assign the multiple virtual warehouses. So over here, we can have multiple type of users within the Snowflake data warehouse. We could have developers, we could have the data analysts, we could have data science users, data scientists, and we could have business analysts. Based on what type of user they are, we can assign them a specific role. So the dev users are going to have a specific dev role. The data analyst is going to have a data analyst role. The data scientists are going to have the data scientist role, and business analysts are going to have the business analyst role. Based on the role, a specific role can access only a specific virtual warehouse. The dev users have access to virtual warehouse underscore dev. The data analyst have access only to data analyst VW underscore DA. The data scientist have access to VW underscore data science, and business analyst have access to this virtual warehouse. So why this is very special, because it now segregates the multiple virtual warehouse usage based on the type of user. The dev users are going to write most of the queries. So you should have a very very good virtual warehouse size. It could be large, or you can even go for extra large. The data analyst is going to write mostly select queries. So you can go for a medium size of virtual warehouse. And data scientists are going to run very, very extreme models against your data. So you should go with the Snowpark optimized virtual warehouses. And then business analyst again run a very basic queries against the data. Usually they only run select queries, right? They are not going to update or delete the data. The analysts are going to analyze the data. Same for data analysts and business analysts. So the medium size of virtual warehouse, or I mean, large size of virtual warehouse is also very good for them. Okay. So you should have an understanding. And tomorrow, if the team increases, you should understand that you will go with the larger virtual warehouse. If the team goes down, you can go for a smaller size of virtual warehouse. If you are sending a lot of queries, you could consider increasing the scaling factor and so on. So you can explain, you can deep dive into these, and it is going to be very beneficial for you. Okay, so please save this diagram, and it is going to be lifesaver for you. And now what I should suggest is to go through, if you want to show a good expertise in Snowflake data warehouse, then I should highly recommend you to read one of the migration strategies, how you can migrate from one database on premise into the Snowflake data warehouse. So this is one of the very interesting articles which I read on Medium. So you can search for it, how you can move or you can migrate from SAP HANA to Snowflake data warehouse. So what it does is that you understand multiple complexities within Snowflake data warehouse, and it also increasing your thought process, right? So you will have a thought process. Okay, how am I going to create the users? How am I going to move the data? How am I going to migrate the procedures? So it is going to be a very nice mental exercise, if you say, to you. So I should highly recommend you to go through one of the migration projects. And if you have any questions, do please drop the question in the comment section. If you have a better solution, if you want to have a discussion, even if you want to share what kind of question you have faced during your interview, please feel free to comment down. Thank you so much for watching this video. Bye bye.